Everyone, welcome Problematic White Guy, and welcome to the Awesome Deck slash Command Center of the Resistance. According to the audience of yesterday's live stream on Nerd Wars, I've got a link to the episode of Nerd Rage that I was a part of yesterday down below. I will go right ahead and just apologize right now if you do click the link. My microphone was terrible. It was the first time that I had ever used StreamYards to do any kind of live streaming. Normally, I run everything through my OBS setup, and so my microphone was absolutely terrible. I do apologize. I have since fixed it. So if anybody wants to have any kind of conversations with me through StreamYards, I should actually not sound like I'm standing on a turbine of an airplane that's taking off. But with that said, I wanted to go a little bit further in depth to what we were talking about yesterday on the Nerd Rage stream, as it applies to the Game Developers Conference, which starts this week on March 18th, tomorrow, and goes all the way through Friday the 22nd. I wanted to go a little bit more in depth because we only really scratched the surface on what I was talking about yesterday in terms of how GDC is the epicenter for a lot of this internalized wokeness.
He's out of line, but he's right.
And the various sustainability and DEI, ESG measures that have been employed in recent years, over a decade now, in terms of the way that it's building up in the game industry and how it applies to game design and all that kind of stuff. So rather than sit here and ramble on about all of that, let's take a look. For today, I wanted to get into the conference overview, and they break it down into the different kinds of topics that they have. There's course design and programming, business and marketing, production and team leadership, and then they've got visual arts, free-to-play, game narrative, independent games, VR, AR, educators, game audio, sponsored content. All this stuff seems fairly expected. But then we've got advocacy, GDC main stage, the game career development, and various workshops. Let's take a look at what the advocacy track is about.
Well, I think you better pull the trigger, because I don't give a fuck.
It says in here, a week of advocacy lessons, addressing topics ranging from diversity to censorship to quality of life within the realm of social advocacy in the game industry. Advocacy sessions aim to provide a forum for discussion and ultimately a place to affect change of the development community. And of course, it's got a little bit more here on some of the things to expect. They've got a one-day workshop on Tuesday, the 19th. And here it says that the Fair Play Workshop seeks to curate and empower the creation of best practices and share those practices across the industry. Topics of focus include designing for player dynamics, reducing disruptive behavior.
You have to force behaviors,
including hate and harassment, creating and fostering diverse and inclusive games and game spaces, establishing healthy player interactions as a product or business focus, esports and streaming, combating bias in games and development, policy and guideline design, social design and systems, multicultural gaming, and more. So a couple of their key talks that they're highlighting, we've got crafting thriving user-generated content communities, and that is going to be given by Maria Tamolini. She's co-founder and CEO of Games Safer, and Carlos Figueredo. He's director of player safety at Microsoft. And then there's also going to be a topic on games that go beyond the binary. This will be given by Rowan Williams, the lead narrative designer of Sprocket Games, and Joe Greylock, who is a chief creative officer at Sprocket Games as well. Then they have another one that's going to be called Designing for a Dark Night of Soul, and that's going to be given by Clarice Carry On. She is, I'm assuming, creative director, co-founder of Silverstring Media. I've heard that company mentioned a few times in recent videos by other creators here on YouTube that have been covering all this stuff recently. And what I've heard so far is highly questionable at best. And so that will be another company that we'll probably want to take a look at. I also went ahead and pulled up the walkthrough of the sessions this week. All right, so it says here, getting ready for GDC 2024, eager to know what talks and events are best for you? Well, here you go. We're here for you, sorry. And it says GDC features hundreds of sessions covering nearly every discipline, topic, and focus that matters to game developers today. It can be hard to choose. That's why we've created the walkthrough guide. Click on a topic to take your one-stop shop with details on your area of interest. Link to find the right sessions for you and content you can read and watch to prepare for this year's event. For those wanting an extra hand, our guides feature GDC 2024 sample schedules. These are day-by-day calendars with talks, roundtables, workshops, and panels matching your interest. Custom built with input from GDC advisors and GDC programming staff. Each one is linked to its session viewer page, making it easier to find and schedule the time or schedule them in the GDC app. Make sure to visit the GDC FAQ for tips on getting around the area, finding networking opportunities, and making the most of your GDC. It's got some general guidelines here on how to use the GDC session guides. We don't really need to read that. But what we're going to actually hone in on specifically is down here. We've got the audio and game music, career development, design, UI, level design. But what we're here to look at, obviously, at least for today's episode, is going to be this track that highlights diversity, accessibility, sustainability, and employee advocacy. We've got diversity, accessibility, sustainability, and employee advocacy. Basic information. Change is happening in the video game industry, and it's important to be a part of it. In our advocacy track, address topics ranging from diversity to censorship to quality of life within the realm of social advocacy in the game industry. Topics include diversity, equity, and inclusion, sustainability, accessibility, and achieving a healthy workspace as part of our mission to support growth in the game industry.
You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
All passes will get you into all GDC sessions, roundtables, and workshops. Most advocacy sessions are accessible at all pass levels, except Friday only Expo Pass. And that's generally the case for anything you go to on GDC. If you get an Expo Pass, it's only for the Expo. That's why they call it an Expo Pass. It's pretty straightforward. But they're going to have summits and sessions. The Fair Play Workshop takes place on Tuesday the 19th. Find Fair Play Workshop sessions here. The International Game Developers Association, IGDA, which I will definitely be doing more of an in-depth look into the IGDA and how it is affecting the game industry at large, because GDC is an annual event where developers come together, but the IGDA exists year-round and is constantly having, an effect on overall game development across the world. The IGDA is hosting a series of roundtables covering a variety of topics. You can find all the IGDA roundtables here at the highlighted link. And there's also core concepts. Sessions take place Wednesday through Friday. You find all the advocacy sessions using that link. And we will go ahead and look at that here in just a second. We've got Fair Play Workshop on the 19th, and that's about harmonizing multiplayer experience, crafting thriving user-generated content communities, non-binary by design, designing for a dark night of soul, kind games, designing for pro-social multiplayer, digital thriving in a post-pandemic world, a pro-social blueprint. See, we've got our roundtables, another workshop, building a resilient industry through work organization and empowerment roundtables, climate crisis workshop, use your game developers' superpowers to fight the climate crisis, game industry layoffs preparedness roundtable. They're definitely going to need that one these days. Can't say that I feel bad for any of them who end up losing their jobs given the recent performance of AAA gaming over the course of the last 5 years easily and beyond. Global Game Jam Roundtable, the local games community organizers roundtable as well. Then we've got a few other things that they got here. The video for advocacy micro talks, cultivate your karas, and that's from the GDC vault. Douglas knew it, and now you do too. Farley Cherry, that's another GDC vault video. There's an article here called Why Your Diversity Program Needs to Be Foundational and Not Band-Aids. It's written by Bryant Francis, a game developer. And there's another article here. Most developers are sold on the idea of unionization, but many still aren't discussing it. And that is by Chris Kerr. I first wanted to just read off the sample schedule of the DEI track that if you were so inclined to go to these sessions every single day of the week, they've got something for you. So on Monday, they've got the Game Narrative Summit, creating diverse character writing, what you know and what you what you know and don't. There's a Fair Play workshop, non-binary by design. Fair Play workshop, another one called Kind Games, designing for pro-social multiplayer. That's when that one's going to be. And then we've got another workshop for digital thriving in a post-pandemic world, a pro-social blueprint. Tuesday is an all-day event. It's Climate Crisis Workshop. Use your game developer superpowers to fight climate crisis. And that is going from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day long. So when you talk about how ESG has an effect on the game industry, they're taking an entire day out of a course track, spending 8 hours of scheduled time talking about just this one aspect of ESG focus.
I'm ready for the big ride, baby.
On Wednesday, there will be the Advocacy Microtalk, Culture, Civics, and Karma. Then after that will be the Black Designer's Dilemma. Now is the time. Workers in games are ready to form unions. And the final track session that day will be Building Cognitive Accessibility into Your Games. Thursday of next week is going to be the number one reason to be, which will start the day from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We've got ROI on T and S, so return on investment on, I guess, I don't know what T and S. We'll have to look at that. Toxicity and the bottom line. So gamer words and such, I assume.
Shit, you're a damn good fly.
You are fined 2 credits for a violation of the verbal morality statute.
I'll be right back.
They seem to be friends, yet he speaks to him in the most profane manner.
Well, if you had read my study, you would know that this is how insecure heterosexual males used to bond.
I knew that.
Thanks a lot, you shit brain.
You are fined. For repeated violations of the verbal morality statute.
So much for the seashells. See you in a few minutes.
Change the rules. Co-ops, unions, and other game labor structures. And then the final one for Thursday is going to be Breaking Boundaries Roundtable. That's for transgender, non-binary, and non-gender conforming game developers, which there are quite a lot of, we're coming to find.
So powerful. So beautiful.
Precious? Precious?
Down here, you sack of shit!
The last day of the week, Friday the 22nd, we're going to have age-friendly design for 50-plus gamer. Being an effective ally roundtable, and that one's presented by the IGDA specifically. Then we've got authentic representation of black hair in games. And then the final event of the week will be building a resilient industry through worker organization and empowerment roundtable. I think I want to look at this one right here, since it seems to have bearing on the COVID hell world that we're all living in. Okay, this is going to be a panel discussion. We've got quite a few speakers here. We got Matthew Lees, the chair of the IGDA Serious Games Special Interest Group. Attila Zatner is the co-founder and CEO of MMOS. I'm not sure what that acronym stands for. Elizabeth Kilmer, Quality of Research from Take This. Kimberly Vall, she's CEO of Brace Yourself Games. Tim Nixon, Director of Online Experience for That Game Company. And also Charlie Harbord, the Director of Partnerships for the Global Game Jam. This is going to be on Monday. It is the final session for the Monday track. And in its description, we've got how do we build more inclusive and resilient communities in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic? A time when many people shifted to using online spaces as their primary means of engaging with the world. This question takes on renewed importance. To tackle this question, this panel brings together experts on the psychology of games and on online engagement with practitioners who help design a game for empathy and inclusion from the ground up, from That Game Company's Sky. Led pro-social initiatives which helped reshape the characters of an online community, Project Discovery and EVE Online, or who seek to harness our industry and player communities for environmental action and other forms of good. Over the hour, the panel will cover the state of community design and management, the holistic context of resilience, and lay out practical recommendations for building better worlds using many of the tools we already have as designers and developers.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Takeaways for this speech, or this panel discussion rather, is for attendees will learn how different practitioners have created platforms and experiences that provide players with a sense of accomplishment that goes beyond moment-to-moment gameplay, about the state of community design, the state of science of community design, and gain tips on how to operationalize these examples in their own works. This is like a lot of corpo speak. Some of this stuff is just, you're starting to make shit up as they go. The intended audience for this talk is geared towards anyone interested in learning about the current state of community design, those interested in integrating pro-social elements like citizen science into games, and anyone interested in taking steps to address underlying issues which drive toxicity and disengagement.
And that's not recruiting, it is development.
When I was on the stream yesterday, I brought up the Game Developers Conference because this is the yearly gathering of all the game developers that they can get together and are willing to pay the price to get there to convene in a centralized location and, effectively learn from, their dogmatic ideology-driven dictates that have been laid out for the coming year, and everything to reinforce
the message,
what they've already been taught, and become very very representational of over the course of the last 10, 15 plus years. The last time I was at GDC was 15 years ago. If you didn't see the stream yesterday where I went into more in depth on that. And that year specifically, the Women in Games special interest group was brought to fruition. And that is a special interest group that is highly, highly supported by the IGDA, which is the International Game Developers Association. IGDA is in many ways the umbrella special interest group that has its involvement in so many of these other special interest groups that have currently been augmenting the way that games have been getting made for the last 10, 15 years. To that end, it is important that we kind of take a step back from the specific actors we've been focusing on and the agencies they represent in the recent weeks, and so that we can actually get a wider view of the situation and understand more about how do we combat this in a meaningful sense and not just in a flame baiting, quick to, burn the witch and move on with our lives and act as though everything has been resolved kind of mentality, which is ultimately what they would want us to do if they realize that we're actually taking the time to research them as a means of entertainment in a larger kind of focus. I think that they would probably try to just throw a company like SBI under the bus and just let us have at that to pick the bones of their already rotting corpse. If you look at their current state of, effectiveness and success with recent games that they have been involved with. But I think that it will be important going forward in the days and weeks to come to spend our time actually getting a better understanding of why people go to the GDC every year, what the intentions of the Game Developers Conference are meant to proliferate throughout the industry, and how it creates such a pervasive, systemic kind of ideology that, due to the onboarding that happens with these young college kids who just want to get into the industry, start to grow blind to the world at large because they're so focused on getting involved in this industry. And the entire time they're there, they're being gaslit and built up to think themselves as kind of being an upper echelon of elite beyond and above the gaming community that they're actually there to do the work for to begin with. Without the gaming community, people playing games, then there's no reason for game developers. When I worked on a printing press, once people stopped reading magazines by and large in the early 2000s, because we had already advanced to broadband well enough to get beyond that, I stopped working on a printing press. I got thrown over in the bindery until such time that, if you aren't printing things, you aren't binding things. And so slowly but surely, I lost 1 degree of my job, and then I lost out entirely because I wasn't vested in the union that was part of the print union at that point in time. I was a few short weeks or away from actually being able to, become part of the union, which would have given me more of a vested interest and would have made me more difficult to dislodge from the inner workings.
You got a pot or a bucket?
find it? Oh my God. I can't believe it. I can't thank you enough. You have to let me pay you something.
No.
No?
Told me and Kenny I'd do it. I did it.
Well, if you won't take money, how about a drink? You can't work all night.
All right.
And so with that said, I do want to thank you again for taking the time to spend with me today while I went over some of the stuff applying to GDC this week. Do keep up to date more easily by liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want to say anything to me down in the comments section below, whether you think I'm wasting my time with this or if there's anything specific that you do want me to do more of an in-depth investigation on, if you want to, call me out for being part of the patriarchy, that's what that stuff's there for. I do appreciate any of the comments that I get from anyone. And, if I'm actually going to get out of obscurity, it will involve your interests.
I'm in control here, and you're going to give me what I want. You know what it is. Give me what I want. You know what I want. I've been asking for it for years. You're going to give me what I want, or I'm going to continue to hurt people you love.
But I'm dragging on, so thanks again for stopping by the Resistance Control Center here at the Awesome Deck with this problematic white guy. And I hope you all have a fun-filled remainder of the day, a wonderful week ahead, and many safe travels wherever you may go. And other than that, we will talk to you next time. Thanks again for stopping by.